A New York judge has ordered Donald Trump and his companies to pay $355 million in penalties. Today is Saturday, February 17th, 2024, and this is the Dunkley Report. A New York judge has ordered Donald Trump and his companies to pay $355 million in penalties. The judge found they engaged in a years-long scheme to dupe banks and others with financial statements that inflated his wealth. Trump won't have to pay out the money immediately as an appeals process plays out, but the verdict still is a stunning setback for the former president. He also was barred from serving as an officer or director of any New York corporation for 3 years, or from getting a loan from banks registered in the state. Trump calls the verdict a complete and total sham. Trump Organization. Executive Vice Presidents Donald Trump Jr. and Eric Trump each were ordered to pay $4 million. Alexei Navalny, who crusaded against official corruption and staged massive anti-Kremlin protests as President Vladimir Putin's fiercest foe, has died in the Arctic penal colony where he was serving a 19-year sentence. That's according to Russia's prison agency. He was 47. The stunning news comes less than a month before an election that will give Putin another 6 years in power. It brought renewed criticism of the Kremlin leader, who has cracked down on all opposition at home. The Federal Penitentiary Service said in a statement that Navalny felt unwell after a walk on Friday and lost consciousness. An ambulance arrived, but paramedics failed to revive him. Kremlin critics, turncoat spies, and investigative journalists have been attacked or killed in a variety of ways. The attacks range from the exotic, such as polonium-laced tea, to the more mundane, such as getting shot at close range. Assassination attempts against foes of President Vladimir Putin have been common during his nearly quarter century in power. Relatives of the victims and the few survivors have blamed Russian authorities, but the Kremlin has routinely denied any involvement. Russian authorities said Friday that Putin's key political challenger, Alexei Navalny, died in an Arctic prison colony. The details of what happened are murky, and his team says it has no confirmation of his death. A witness has refused to answer most questions from defense attorneys trying to disqualify Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis from the Georgia election interference case against Donald Trump. The attorneys had expected Terrence Bradley to testify that Willis and Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade began dating before Wade was hired for the Trump case. But Bradley repeatedly refused to answer questions about Wade and Willis on Friday, citing attorney-client privilege. The attorneys for Trump and some other defendants in the election case argue that the relationship started before Willis hired Wade, and that she benefited from his earnings for the work, creating a conflict of interest. Israel's defense minister says Israel is thoroughly planning its promised military offensive in the southern Gaza town of Rafah. That signaled a determination to move ahead despite growing international concerns about the safety of the large Palestinian civilian population huddled there. U.S. President Joe Biden has urged Israel not to carry out the operation without a credible plan to protect civilians, while Egypt has said An operation could threaten diplomatic relations between the countries. Many other world leaders have issued similar messages of concern. An estimated 1.4 million Palestinians, more than half of Gaza's entire population, have crammed into Rafah, most of them displaced by fighting elsewhere in the territory. West Virginia. Senator Joe Manchin says he is not running for president. Manchin announced his decision in a speech Friday at West Virginia University, saying he didn't want to be a spoiler. The centrist Democrat, who often bucked his party's leadership, had been considering a run for the presidency, and had said he thought it would be clear by March if there was a path for a third-party candidate this year. Manchin is not running for re-election in 2024. His Senate seat, in a heavily Republican state, is expected to be a prime pickup opportunity for the GOP. Major technology companies signed a pact Friday to voluntarily adopt reasonable precautions to prevent artificial intelligence tools from disrupting democratic elections worldwide. Tech executives from Adobe, Amazon, Google, IBM, Meta, Microsoft, OpenAI, and TikTok gathered at the Munich Security Conference to announce a new voluntary framework for how they will respond to AI-generated deepfakes that deliberately trick voters. 12 other companies, including Elon Musk's X, are also signing on. The accord is largely symbolic, but targets increasingly realistic AI-generated images, audio, and video that make candidates say something they didn't, or mislead about how to vote. Tech watchdogs said the accord was a positive step, but more action needs to be taken. Colorado authorities issued an arrest warrant for a former funeral home owner who they say kept a deceased woman's body in a hearse for 2 years, at a residence where police also found the cremated remains of at least 30 people. The grisly discovery occurred February 6th during a court-ordered eviction of a Denver house rented by 33-year-old Miles Harford, who owned Apollo Funeral and Cremation Services in a Denver suburb. The business has been closed since September 2022. The body of a 63-year-old woman was found in a hearse on the property, and the cremains were found in the house when the owner was cleaning it out. Colorado has no routine inspections of funeral homes or qualification requirements for operators. A judge has declared a mistrial in the murder trial of a former Ohio sheriff's deputy because the jury was unable to reach a verdict. Jason Meade was charged in the December 2020 fatal shooting of Casey Goodson, Jr. in Columbus. Judge David Young had already declared a mistrial Friday morning, but retracted it minutes later and commended the jurors for their hard work. He declared a final mistrial about 2 hours later. Meade testified that Goodson waved a gun at him from his vehicle, but no one else told jurors that they saw Goodson holding a gun. Prosecutors have said Goodson was holding a sandwich bag in one hand and his keys in the other when he was killed. Meade is white and Goodson was black. Authorities say 2 juveniles have been charged with crimes connected to the mass shooting at the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl rally. A news release from the Jackson County Family Court on Friday said the juveniles are being detained in the county's juvenile detention center on gun-related and resisting arrest charges. The release said additional charges are expected as the investigation continues. No further information was released. A mother of 2 was killed and 22 people were injured by gunfire. Wednesday afternoon, when shots erupted amid the throng of fans gathered at a rally outside Union Station after a parade through the city. Today's news was reported by the Associated Press. This has been the World News for Saturday, February 17th, 2024. Thanks again for joining us at The Dunkley Report.